Hey guys, welcome. Today's yin practice is going to be all about chest, shoulders, upper body, and just a way to create a little bit more space there. So you're going to want to have a strap or something to use for a strap like a belt or a scarf, and then either a couple of blocks or even a couple of pillows will help for what we'll need them for. Right, and so this first part we're going to do isn't quite yin, but just one of my favorite ways to start to get a little bit of mobility and range of motion working in the shoulders to warm it up for some of those other poses that we're going to do. So you're going to want to grab your strap or belt or scarf, whatever you've got. Find a comfortable seat. If you want to sit up on anything, a pillow or a block just for a little bit more height, these first couple poses we're going to do seated, so settle in, find a place that feels comfortable. Right, and then you're going to start with your hands in a pretty good size V. You can adjust a little bit as you go, okay, and give a little tension on the strap. Okay, and then before we start, just take a moment, anchor your seat. Right, without a huge amount of effort, but sit tall enough that your body feels spacious. Take a full breath in, full breath out. Good. And then with your inhale, just nice and slow, reach both arms up overhead. And as you exhale, take your arms behind you. This is where you might want a little bit more space on the strap, right? A little bit longer or a little bit shorter if that's what you need, until you can come all the way around to the back. And sometimes that means arms way out long on the strap. And then just move a few times with your breath, both arms up, inhale. And then arms forward, exhale. Go nice and slow, right? I know this isn't, like I said, quite yin, but just a really nice way to start to move a bit through your shoulders. And take a moment to connect with your breath. And see if you can start to lengthen out your breath a little bit. And in that way, you can make the movements longer. Just take a few more. And you might even, when you get to that sticky spot, wherever that is for you, pause, take an extra breath, and keep tractioning your hands away from each other on the strap so that you can feel that through the chest and shoulders. These are one of those you can do that just takes like a couple of minutes, maybe a couple times a week. Keep the shoulders moving in that healthy range of motion. Good. And then work towards finishing up. And then when you're ready, you can set your strap off to the side. Take a couple nice big rolls with your shoulders back and forth. That already might help. Okay, and then from here, take your arms out wide. Take a breath in. And then with your exhale, wrap your left arm underneath your right eagle arms, or you can do hands to shoulders here to see what feels better. Take that double wrap. Right, and we'll start to move it a little bit more yin-like. So go ahead, just let your elbows drop down towards your chest. So there doesn't have to be a lot of effort in the arms. And then you can also, from there, let your chin drop down towards your chest as well. So you get these eagle arms, but a little bit more folded in. And in the first few breaths here, you can just let your head and neck roll a little bit side to side, right? Ear to shoulder, ear to shoulder. Go nice and slow, right? So just starting to settle into that quieter space in our bodies. And you might even find one good point and just hang out there for a little bit. I find here too, the less effort I put in my arms, I can just let the elbows drop down. And as I do those neck rolls, it gives a little bit more sensation. It's like a little bit of traction along the bottom of neck, top of shoulders. And there's that area. It's not just one or the other, but everything's connected. Give yourself a few more breaths here. And just slowly unwind your arms. And you just take a couple of rolls with the shoulders forward and back. And then arms out wide, inhale. Right arm under, left, exhale. All right, take whatever wrap feels like the best place for you on this side. And then do the same, let your elbows drop down, right, to release the effort. And maybe your chin moves towards your chest, and to see how that feels in your body. And if a little movement through head and neck, just in the first few breaths. It's just nice to find the place that you want to settle into the stillness, like where feels most effective for this pose in your body today. Right? And a different variation from what we do in a really active practice here by just letting your arms get heavy. And then just let yourself settle into your breath. Let the attention begin to drift there. Notice how and where breath is moving today. As always in our yin practice, we'll use this as part of that anchor for the mind. Right, so that we're not just creating space in our body. Yes, that's a wonderful part. But also working to create some space between thoughts, some space in our mind. And so that when thoughts start to get a little bit swirling, we have the breath to come back to. Okay, next inhale, unwind. Good, one more time, take a couple rolls with the shoulder, just that little bit of movement in between poses. Keep it slow, keep it gentle. And then from here, tabletop pose. And so come to hands and knees. And then just move through a couple gentle rounds of cat-cow and see if you can really focus on moving from your shoulders so that it feels like shoulder blades are gliding forward and back along your spine, right, along your ribs. Right, yeah, the whole spine's going to move too. Sometimes it's just where we bring our attention. And then the next time you come to cat pose with your back rounded, stay there. Thread your left arm behind your right. Come to rest either down on the side of your head. Here's a great place if you want a little bit more support, like a block or a pillow under your head if it feels like the mat's really far away. Good. And right, so we do this often in active practice. So you might have that kind of muscle memory to start to engage things. See if instead you can soften. And so your right hand can stay there for support. You can walk it forward or even wrap it around, but just find the place that's not taking a lot of effort. And let your left arm soften. You can even close your eyes or just let your eyelids get heavy. And then bring your attention to your breath here. And let go of having to do anything with breath. And see if you can find the place where it starts to get a little bit slower. Just by slowing down through your body and allowing that to happen. And take a few more breaths here. All right, we'll stay a little bit shorter time in these first few poses and then move into some longer holds as we keep going. Just easing our body in. Okay, as you're ready, unwind. Come back to center. Take a couple of rounds of cat-cow in between. And we'll just find those little movements in between poses. And then we'll do that same. Next time you come to cat, no hurry. Use that, thread your right arm behind your left. Come to rest on the side of your head. Right? Or pillow or a block underneath. And keep your left hand there if it feels good for support, especially as you start to let the body soften a little more. Or you can walk it forward or wrap it around. You may even choose a different variation on this side than you chose on the first, just depending on what shoulder girdle, chest feels like here. We know it's different side to side, so choose the option that works best. And then just notice if there's anywhere your body's really trying to work to hold you in the pose. And is there anywhere you can soften the effort a little bit and just feel like you're relying more on the structure of your body than the engagement of your muscles? And notice what your breath is doing here. And take just a few more breaths. And as you're ready, you're going to slowly unwind, come back to tabletop. And one more time, you can take just a couple rounds of cat-cow, or if there are any other little movements that would feel good, circles with shoulders and hips. Find what works for you. And then as you're ready, child's pose. So go ahead, bring your big toes together, settle your hips back, walk your arms forward. We're going to take a little bit different shoulder variation, arm and shoulder variation today. So once your hips are back, bend your elbows, bring your palms together so that your fingers are pointing up towards the ceiling. Right, and then you can keep your hips low, but just start to crawl your elbows forward. We're lengthening out that space underneath the shoulder, into the armpit and the lats there. Right, this also might be a place if you want support under your head. If it feels like your forehead is kind of far from their mat. And once you've got that set up with your hands, you can let them rest right, to your head, behind your head, or even behind your neck, just depending on range of motion within the shoulders today. And then bring your attention to your breath. And just see where you can feel your breath start to move. And so you're not even having to do anything with your breath. Just letting the rhythm of it, the sensation of it be your anchor. And just notice if there's anywhere in your body you can soften a little bit more. Sometimes we find those places right around where the sensation is a little stronger. And if you're finding it really hard to soften, it may mean that you've come a little bit too far Right up against that sensation. And the body's way of telling you it's okay to back out a hair. Right? That it's less about the effort and just more about the time that we spend in the pose. Allowing the tissues to soften, to open, without having to do anything to them. Right? Just the shape that we're in. And let's take a few more breaths here. Notice if your thoughts, your attention drifted somewhere else. And just invite it back to breath in those last few moments. And then when you're ready, just move slowly, release your hands. Slide forward one more time to tabletop. And this time just go ahead, take a moment, either stretch your legs back one at a time. You can open up the backs of your knees, right? Or you can take some movements with shoulders. Slow and easy. And then when you're ready, come all the way down onto your belly and prop yourself up on your forearms. Right, Sphinx pose. So a few options here. For some people, this is fine amount of back bend with elbows stacked under shoulders. For some of us, a little bit less back bend is a better choice, and you can walk your elbows forward a little bit more. A nice option for support here, if you have one, is a block underneath your forehead. And if you don't, just let your head rest wherever it's most comfortable. You can keep your gaze forward or let your chin move down towards your chest. If the block feels good underneath your forehead, great, do that. And then just find a place for your legs where it feels like they can relax. Sometimes that means just a little bit wider, right? They don't have to come way wide on your mat. Just where it feels like there's no effort to hold them together. Your heels might drop in or out. Let your legs get heavy. And see if you can feel the center of your chest soften a little bit more in between your shoulders. And as you do that, the shoulder blades might draw back a little bit more. And notice where breath is here. It's nice in these belly down postures, and we're going to do a series of these, that you can really feel that feedback of your breath as your belly presses against your mat. And if you're not feeling that, it might mean the breath is a little bit higher up into the chest. It's often where it lives during the day. And so notice what happens if you can just soften a little bit more through the belly. And that way it feels like you're just creating the space for your breath to move there, instead of effort for it to move there. And if your forehead is on a block, see if you can release the weight of your head a little bit more to that. It's such a connection between neck and shoulders, and our neck does so much work to hold our head up that just releasing the weight of our heads can really let the neck muscles soften a little bit more. But it's usually a really conscious effort because they're just used to working all the time to hold their head up. Okay, let's take a few more breaths here, this first round of Sphinx. And as you're ready, just lift your head up. And if you're using a block, you can set that right off to the side. And you're going to slide your left arm forward just a few inches, couple inches, few inches, and then roll onto your left side. So you can keep your legs stacked here. Sometimes a little bend just helps to soften. And so that your elbow is forward of your shoulder, not stacked directly underneath. So you have kind of like a triangle from your elbow to your armpit to your hip. Okay. And then you're just going to let the ribs soften down towards the ground. We start to create a little bit of space underneath the shoulder, at this area kind of in the shoulder blade. And you have a couple options here. This might feel like plenty. This version is also really nice if your wrists tend to get a little tender when you're bearing weight on them. Right, so you can stay here or prop yourself up onto your hand, but just like your elbow, let your hand stay forward. Again, so there's this big triangle here. And then allow the side body to soften. Right, and you might feel this anywhere along the side body, but we're getting this sheet of fascia, of connective tissue here. I think this is one that tends to be very, very variable. So either it's really subtle, there's not a ton of sensation. Right? For some people, you feel right away where it goes. But these side body sheets can be really helpful. Right? We tend to do front and back a lot. Whenever we're working, hips, shoulders, quads. Right? And think about this like the seam of the body that connects both of them. And working to create a little extra space in that side seam. Let your head rest wherever it's comfortable. I'm just trying to release that effort. And with each exhale breath, see if you can let the ribs just get a little bit heavier. Right, your left shoulder might be drawing more up towards your ear, and that's fine for this, right? Because our goal really is more on the underside of your shoulder. And take just a few more breaths. And then if you're up on your hand, bend your elbow, roll back to Sphinx pose. And just take a breath or two at center. It's just nice. Then we notice that different side to side, the effect you had on the side body. And we'll do the same for the right side. So slide your elbow forward just a couple of inches and then roll onto your right side. You can adjust a little bit with hips and legs, right, towards bent or straight, what feels good. And then you can have that same option here. You can stay on your elbow if you know especially wrist stuff is a little finicky, or come up onto your hand. Right? Just kind of different effect with gravity from one to the other. Right? And just make sure that hand or wrist, you're not right under the shoulder, that your hand is forward. So you've got this triangle from hand or elbow to armpit to hip. It's also going to give some good space for the side body to soften. Good. Checking even that legs aren't having to work here, just let them get heavy. And then do that same with every exhale. Let your side body start to sink a little bit more. It might be different side to side. Sometimes even where we feel the pose is really different side to side. And just keep coming back to attention to breath. The softer the body gets, the more we slow down. The hope is the breath follows, right? So there's more room for the breath to fill. And the rate of breathing can slow down a little bit and start to move out of that fight or flight place of the nervous system where we live way too much. And take a few more breaths. And just slowly lower down onto your forearm, come back to Sphinx. Take a couple of breaths. And again, just organize your legs so they feel relaxed. No work, no effort. And then you're either going to stay here for about another minute or so, or seal pose. And so you can press into your hands, bring your arms to or towards straight. You can adjust a lot here. You can walk your hands a little bit further forward. They'll ease the back bend a bit. Or you can walk them in a little bit closer if it feels like a little bit more back bend. Right? But really the back bend isn't the main target. Yes, it's a nice benefit, but it's letting the chest soften between your shoulders so the shoulder blades can draw back. Right? And then it's just allowing that weight to come forward. The front body can open and we get a little bit more, right, release on those tissues in between the shoulder blades, which can often get a lot of tension as the shoulders are rolled forward more often. You got to take just a couple more breaths. And then go ahead, lower all the way down. And just take a moment, let the hips move a little bit side to side. And so you do get a bit of a release from the back bend. Okay. And then go ahead, have block or even a pillow nearby right at the front of the mat there. Okay, and we'll start here again in Sphinx pose. Okay, for this one, there'll be a couple options for your arms. Take your left arm, thread it behind your right elbow. Like these next two are probably my favorite shoulder openers these days. And so either right arm forward, right? This might be plenty. For a lot of us, this is plenty. Or you're going to take your right arm and thread it in front of your left so that your biceps are crossed. And you get this, we call it tying the knot, all the way high up on the biceps. And so just depending on range of motion, how shoulders feel, you can choose which one works best for you. And then that's where the block or pillow come in handy. You can let your forehead rest there. Right? It also might be just as easy to let your chin rest to or on your arm. Okay, if it feels like your legs worked to get you there, because mine do that, they help me into the pose, let them soften again. And see if you can just release the weight of your upper body onto your arms. And let your head get a little heavier. Give the neck muscles a break. And then just feel where your breath is here. Or does it feel like you can soften a little bit more, allow breath to move? And just notice sensation. Just making sure you're at a place that feels sustainable. Effective without overdoing. And let's just take a few more breaths here. When you're ready, and start to unwind your arms. Let's come back to Sphinx pose. It's feeling like it's our home base today. Take a breath or two there, just to feel any shifts. That's what happens after the pose. And we'll do that same 1 second side. So right hand, thread it behind your left elbow. Right, and so for this one, either left arm forward, right arm tucked under, or snuggle your left arm in front. Right, palms up, palms down, whatever feels more effective for you. Again, you can do chin towards your arm to rest, forehead to a block or a pillow. It's always fun to try and set up your support when your arms are all crisscrossed. We'll do the best we can. And soften any effort in your legs. And then just let the weight of your upper body settle. So just that little bit of weight and gravity hopefully starts to create a little bit more sensation, a little pressure on the tissue to help that slowly start to unwind. We know that shoulders can get pretty affected by the work that we do, and that this rounding forward of the shoulders is a all too common posture. And then also energetically, some days it feels like we're carrying the weight of the world there. Right? The day-to-day worries, sometimes the bigger events that are happening. So as you start to find a little bit more space in the tissue, right, physically in your body, what else does that help to soften, right? In your mind, emotionally, we know they're all connected. And it can feel like some of those things we're just holding on to really tightly can let go a bit. Doesn't mean they're gone. Maybe they do. It just feels like the grip softens a little. Maybe the weight that we're carrying feels just a little bit lighter. And then just take a few more breaths on this side. Come on back, Sphinx pose. Take a couple of breaths. And then go ahead, release all the way down onto your belly. Use your hands and just press yourself gently up to tabletop. I'm just going to do a little setup for the next one. So you can use blocks for this. You could also use a pillow or two. We'll set them up lengthwise down your mat. So if you're using blocks, this first one comes in between the shoulder blades and this other one behind your head. And you can adjust the height of them. Sometimes this is a little bit more sensation with the blocks, and a couple of pillows like that or a bolster works really well too. I'm just going to come to lie down on your blocks, on your pillows, whatever you've got that just elevates the chest a little bit. And then choose what works for your legs. You can have them straight out like Shavasana. You can take feet wide, let knees rest together. Or you can do the opposite. You can take your legs into butterfly with feet together and knees wide. If it feels like your hips are craving a little opening with all the shoulder work, you can do that. Okay, so I have a fair amount of range of motion in shoulders, and I can take my arms into cactus here with my forearms to the mat, but I know that that's not the right option for everybody, right? So that might mean arms a little bit lower. That might mean arms more like T or even down by your sides. You just want to find somewhere where your forearms can rest to the mat, so they're not having to work to hold you in that position. And once you get all of that situated and set up, allow your body to start to settle in. Close your eyes. Feel the weight of your upper body settle back onto that support. And allow the belly to feel soft so your breath can fill there. And let the heads of your shoulders drop back. Right, so just feel that holding on that we get through the neck and shoulders, and start to let that go. Right. I think we know we can feel it both directions. Right? Sometimes we feel a stressor let go and the body softens. And sometimes we affect it the other way when we start to soften through the body, then whatever the mind is holding on to really tightly, you can give it a little bit more space. A little release around the edges. And if all those thoughts start to swirl back in, just gently invite attention back to breath. It's going to do that. And just come back to breath as anchor. As things shift a little within the pose, just allow your body to soften, maybe to set a little bit heavier around those shifts. I just have a couple minutes left in the practice, so a couple options here. You can stay right here in this supported fish pose. If it feels like, all right, I'm done, I'm craving just a couple of minutes in regular Shavasana, you can roll off of your blocks Your pillows, whatever you've got, slide them out, come to lie all the way down. Just let these last few minutes, couple minutes, set up something that feels restful, supported. We'll take just a couple moments in quiet, wherever you're at. And if you're still up on that support of your blocks, and start to make your way off, roll to your side. If you're already down in Shavasana, do the same, draw your knees in, roll to your side. And then just use the support of your hands, come all the way back up to sitting. Once you get there, bring your hands together at your heart. And just like we did at the beginning, take a moment to anchor your seat. And then sit a little bit taller. Feel the shoulder blades drop down and back. And just notice how that upper body feels now. Head, neck, shoulders. I'm so glad you were able to take the time to practice today. Thanks so much for sharing that. Namaste.